So why did we draw on ancient practices and refer back to ancient tribes and religions when we're writing the book? Well, the reason for this is that if you go back far enough into human history, and even particular tribes that are still living on the planet, other cultures, and in the past we had a different way of dealing with crisis. Now we might try and avoid it, but our primitive forebears and ancestors, they embraced crisis, and sometimes they made it happen, and they had this particular process that they went through, and it was a tripartite process called separation, transition, and then return. And what this means is that when something comes at you that feels like a crisis, you are going to be separated from the normal world. We talk about the COVID thing, the new normal and the old normal. So in a crisis, there's this period of separation from what was normal, whatever that may be. The thing to do is try and accept it. For as long as you fight it, it just makes it worse. And as hard as it is to accept that the crisis has come, once you do accept it, and once you realise that life is going to be different, like with COVID, all the different signs and all the different things we do, so you accept that. Then there's the transition time when you have to try and reimagine a new you. If you've lost your job, you have to try and get a new job. If you've changed relationships, you might have to create new relationships. Whatever it happens to be, this transitionary time is when you create the new you and you begin to imagine the new you. And then the return in all those primitive cultures was when you came back the new person. So for example, they would have called these rites of passage. So when a child was becoming an adult, this was a huge crisis and it happened over maybe only a few months. They were separated from the world. There was rites of transition, and they came back, and they came back as adults. But what's wonderful about this is that our oldest ancestors, they embraced change. They embraced all this stuff. They said it happens. And the other wonderful thing, of course, about back then was that they did it together. Like, for example, in Ireland, wakes are a great ritual and a way of transiting from the bereavement process, because we all do it together. Everybody gathers around. And those primitive cultures, all the group was with you. You compare that now to going through a financial crisis, just you and your accountant, or just you and your family and no one knows. Going through divorce just in a lawyer's office. So isolated, so solitary. So we refer to those primitive practices, those old practices, because everybody did it together and you felt supported and you didn't feel isolated.